Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the video. Today I'm going to show you my favorite way to set up the Boss RC-500 loop station. This is not the way it comes stock out of the box. You actually have to reprogram the 3 switches here. And then I've also attached the Boss FS6 foot switch to the Control 1 and 2 jack to add more functionality. This is the best way I've found to set up the loop station for my personal workflow, and I've watched a ton of videos on this and no one has set it up quite like this. So I thought it'd be worth making a video about in case there's someone out there who loves this style of setup and maybe it could be helpful for them. By default, when you get the loop station, it's set up exactly as the buttons are labeled. So when you're on track 1, you can record play and then stop. You can hold stop to clear, and then you can hit the track select button to flip to track 2 so that these first 2 buttons impact track 2 instead of track 1. That's pretty good, and I used it that way for a few weeks, but then once I got into the settings, I found this setup that works better. Let me talk briefly through how the controls work, and then I'll give you a quick demonstration and then show you how to set it up. So basically in this mode, this first button is going to be everything for track 1. So a single press will start the recording, and then when you're done recording, single press it again and it'll switch to playback. From there, anytime you want to do an overdub, you just press it once and then press it again when you're done overdubbing. To stop, you double tap, and then that'll stop just that track. Holding it down will do one of 2 things. If the track is stopped, it will clear the track out. If the track is currently playing, it's going to undo the last overdub that you did. That's helpful if you mess up or you want to add and remove a part, however you want to use that. Same exact thing for track 2. And then this track select is going to start and stop both track 1 and 2. And then there's a memory setting I can show you that will determine whether or not your rhythm track starts or stops. And then so what I have over here is this A button starts and stops all the drums, and this B button turns on certain parts of the drum kit. Depending on the song, that'll either be like snare and hi-hat or kick and snare, depending on what I want to bring in and out. Sometimes I'll just bring in and out the snare to like take away that backbeat and add it back in when I want the song to get bigger. You can set that up however you want, but I want to show you how you can put multiple parameters on one button and start to achieve that. So let me give you a quick demonstration and then we'll go on from there. Just a little disclaimer, I usually loop by stepping on these, and so I'm going to do my best to play and hit that in time. So if the loop's a little rough, I apologize. So I'll just record something quick. Got it, nice. Okay, so I hit record once to record it, I hit it again, and now we're just on playback. That's basic looper stuff. So say I want to add a layer, we'll just do something kind of swimmy. Yeah. Just let it go. Nice. Okay. So I'm going to add in a second track. So I'm going to do a bass for this. Okay, so if I want to stop the whole thing, it's out, 2, 3, 4, and back in. If I want to bring in the snare, now it's grooving. You know, you feel it? You feel it? Stop just the drums. And then say when I stop the bass. Such a good way to be able to trigger everything all at once, in my opinion. So that's how I like to use it. Now let's dive into the menus and I'll help you get that set up. One thing to note is you want to set this up on one memory and then use that memory and kind of write it to any slot you want and then make changes. Because not all of these are global settings, meaning whenever you change a memory, you're going to have to reset all these settings. So don't do what I did and have to go back and set it on a bunch of memories because I wanted to change things later. Just set it up the way you want first and then build out all your songs. It'll save you so much time. Okay, so to get this set right, go into memory and go all the way to control. Once you're there, press the memory button. So the first three are pedals 1 through 3, which are these right here. So the record play is 1, stop is 2, track select is 3. So we're gonna start on pedal 1. By default, this is set to current play stop. And what that means is whatever track is currently selected, 1 or 2, this is gonna play or stop for just that track. And you need to track select to the other one to get it to change. We're gonna go, you can turn this all the way to track 1. So the one you want is T1 RPSC, and that's pedal 1 is gonna control track 1, record, play, stop, and clear. So once you do that, go to pedal 2 and do the same thing, except you want T2 RPSC, track 2, record, play, stop. And then for the third one, you can set this wherever you want, but I really like the all start. You can also, if you want a global undo redo, you can do that, or a tap tempo right there. I like all start. All start is also all stop, so I'm gonna set that. If you've done that right, you can start each one here. Okay, you double click to stop it, and then start your other one here. I hear it. Stop it, and then start all of it, stop all of it minus drums. So for the foot switch, I like the Boss FS6 for this because it's a little bit bigger. Also, it's cheaper. I got this used on Reverb for like 50 bucks. You can wire it up a few different ways, but the best way is with a TRS cable. So that's the one that has the tip, ring, and sleeve, 3 separate sections. And so one end of that goes into the Control 1-2 jack of the pedal, and then the other one goes into the A and B jack, the middle one of the Boss FS6. And then just set all these switches that way, towards the power button. You want it on momentary, because latch is gonna hold something there, and you don't want that. Once you have that set up, you can use a few different kinds of 2-button foot switches. I just like this because I trust Boss and I know it's gonna plug in and work. From there, you can turn to the next setting here, which is Control 1. And now this is a little weird because Control 1 actually controls button B, and Control 2 controls button A. So I don't know who thought of that, but I don't, whatever. So I'll explain why this is off in a second, but for now we're gonna go to Control 2, which is programming button A, and that's the rhythm play stop. You can do if you just want a rhythm play on that, you can do that, but play stop puts more usability in a single button. So I've got that set up. Starts the rhythm, stops the rhythm. For the final button here, Control 1, I have this off, and the reason is I wanted to control certain parts of the drum kit. For this particular patch, it's the snare sound, the little rim click, and so basically, there it is. Now it's not there. For whatever reason, you cannot control all the parameters in the pedal from these control functions. So if I go through here to rhythm, you gotta go through the track stuff, the current, all the effects. The only rhythm options you have on the controls are rhythm play stop, rhythm play, rhythm stop. That's it. That's not a lot of options. So what I found out is that if you go to assign here, let me make sure I turn that off. You don't want that to do all start. Oh, nuts, I messed it up. Okay, so set this Control 1 to off. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but this has to be either assigned to a parameter or off. So if you can't assign it to the parameter you want, just turn it off. And then what we're gonna do is go back a level to this assign 1. And so what these assigns are, they basically allow you to set second parameters to any pedal, or if the pedal's off, first parameters. So I'm gonna click into that. You wanna make sure the assign is on, and you wanna make sure the source means what is triggering this assign. And so in this case, we want Control 1, which is our B button. You can set this to do any of the other pedals if you're trying to trigger multiple parameters. But I'm gonna leave it on pedal 1, turn again, source mode toggle. This messed me up when I first came across it because I was like, oh, I set this to unlatching, so I don't want toggle, I want momentary. But that's not the case. Momentary means it'll only be active while you're physically holding the button down. So that could be good in some cases, but for me, I need to tap it and move on. So I like it on toggle. Toggle just means you press it and it's on, you press it again and it's off. Like a regular pedal foot switch is a toggle. Under this target area is where you have basically any parameter in the pedal. In here you have all the rhythm parts, you have rhythm fill, whether you want that on and off, play count, record count, rhythm stop, rhythm start. This is basically the entire menu in a list of controls that your pedal can control. So I like the rhythm part 2 because that's snare. Generally, part 1 is kick, part 2 is snare, part 3 is like the hi-hat percussion and stuff, and then part 4 is fills and cymbal, like the crash cymbal. It can get annoying, so I like to leave that one off. But part 2, and then it'll automatically set these, but if you want to change it to another way, you can do that. This is basically target minimum, basically means what's the value when the pedal's off, and then the maximum is what's the value when the pedal's on. Or if you're using an expression pedal, you can set the range of a parameter, like if you're using an expression to control volume. But generally it'll auto assign it for these simple on-off ones. It'll auto assign it for you and it's correct. So I'm just checking that, you know, when I'm not using this assign, it's off, and then when I press it, the target will set it to on. This is the only two options. So I should be able to start my rhythm and then toggle the snare on and off. Nice. So that's working, but say you want to add a second parameter to this button. It's rhythm part 1. Toggle control pedal 1, on, off, and on. So it takes a little working to get it right, and make sure that if you want it this way that they're both set to on at the same time or both set to off. A great way to use this would be like if you want to record your loops initially to some sort of rhythm, but you don't want the metronome. Just save your preset so that by default, when you open it up and start the rhythm, it's just the hi-hat, right? You record your first loop, and then when you're ready, you put the drums in there, the rest of the kit. You can configure this so many different ways, and I was so excited when I figured this out. I just had to share it with everyone. The only other thing to note is there's a setting you can adjust that will basically say if your all start, all stop affects the rhythm or not. For all start, currently it does, right? But then when I turn it off, the rhythm keeps going. To adjust that, go in here to memory rhythm and go over until you see start. So this basically tells it what is causing it to start. And in this case, the start is set to loop start. So loop start means when I start anything like recording or playback, the loop is going to start like that. And then the next one is stop. So same thing, but what's going to cause this to stop? And so you can say, you know, stop when the loop stops, stop when the recording ends, or nothing. And so depending on the song, I'll set this stop parameter to either off or loop stop. And so loop stop means when I hit this all stop, the rhythm's going to stop too. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back in. So that wraps up the video on how I have my Boss RC-500 loop station set up. In my opinion, this is the most efficient and space-saving way to use all 5 of these switches. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out in the comments. I'd be happy to help out. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe.